Welcome to In Pursuit of Truth. This is your host, Sir Patrick Mack. Folks, today we are talking about real news, we're talking about fake news, and we are talking about everything in between. But first, let me say hello to John. What's up, John? You all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we dealing with a bunch of fake news today. What you think about fake news? Oh, you look angry. That must be your angry face.
You angry?
I'm angry.
No, I'm not angry. I feel good. I trust the plan. I know what's going on. I feel happy. I'm happy.
Yeah, you're happy?
I am happy. I trust the plan.
I'm happy too.
Good to know. How many we got so far today?
16.
That's right, little bro. 16. And we're going to start where we left off, which is right here, post 2025. 23 minutes after the hour of 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Q is adding on to the previous post by adding the Punisher logo and this Twitter link. The Twitter link takes you to this video that I showed you in yesterday's video. I'm not going to show it to you today, but the Washington Examiner shows it in this tweet, what he's saying. Trump on Hillary Clinton. Look at what she is getting away with. But let's see if she gets away with it. And of course, that sounds like some foreshadowing to me. Trump loves to do this, doesn't he? He loves to throw these things out here, and they seem sort of rather innocuous at the time, but they usually end up catching up. So we're talking about Hillary Clinton here, which takes me back here to the post. I was talking about this Punisher logo the other day, and I actually failed to mention a really important point. Of course, we've tied this logo to SEAL Team 6 before, and I was talking about Huber the other day because he's one that would bring some pain. But I failed to mention one very important guy. If you remember, the Punisher is based on a comic about a guy who is a New York guy, and he takes on the mob. Well, who else is a New York guy that took on the mob but one Rudy Giuliani? Rudy Giuliani has what we call the insurance files, the laptop, the information, all that stuff that was going on where? New York, Southern District of New York. And this would all be the stuff that would really, really implicate Hillary in the crimes that we want to see her go down for. We know that she's cheated. We know that she sold all our tech out and our information. We know about all those other things. But what we really, really want to get her for are the human rights abuses. And that is all going to be going down in New York. So I failed to mention that in my past video, and I wanted to point that out, that this very well could imply Rudy Giuliani. But either way, Q is clearly saying that the pain is meant for Hillary Clinton. Let's move on. Post 2026. 56 minutes after the hour of 9 a.m., we get this NSA.gov one link. Q says, Utah, what are the odds of that? Now that takes you to this link right here. And this is nsa.gov1.info, Domestic Surveillance Directorate, defending our nation, securing the citizens. And as you can see here, this has some rather interesting stuff. I'm loving this right here. Welcome to the Utah Data Center. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. Boy, that's creepy. Looks like a funeral home thing. So you can see this looks like some obvious Photoshop here. And of course, you can see the logo there. It looks like the on button for your computer. And if we go all the way down, we'll see this right under the pictures here that look like the pickle factory, the NSA Utah Data Center. But it says down at the very, very bottom, this is a parody of NSA.gov and has not been approved, endorsed, or authorized by the National Security Agency or by any other U.S. government agency. Much of this content was derived from news media, privacy groups, and government websites. Links to these websites are posted on the left sidebars of each page, okay, like they were. Now I'm going to click on this, more about the website. This parody website has no connection whatsoever to the National Security Agency. The Domestic Surveillance Directorate is a fictitious entity I created in October 2012, to raise awareness of important privacy issues. I'm not an expert in this subject matter, nor am I associated with any privacy group. And then it goes on to talk about the sidebars thing like that. Okay, so this is a parody website. Let me take you back to the main page. And as you can see now, thinking about that, we can see that this website takes on sort of a new meaning, doesn't it? Now, nothing here is necessarily all that trashy. It's actually rather interesting. And it takes us to this right here. In recent months, numerous top secret documents have been leaked to the media relating to surveillance activities carried out by our intelligence community. In an effort to increase transparency, a new website called IC Off the Record was created to provide the American people immediate, ongoing, and direct access to these unauthorized leaks. So let's go over there. And here we have again another one of these sites that's not necessarily an official site. It says down below here, this website is the opposite of IC on the record and has not been approved, endorsed, authorized, or redacted by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence or by any other U.S. government agency. Okay, so more fake news, right? Well, in perusing through this, some of this stuff is really, really interesting. Here's a link that takes you to The Intercept. Before Snowden, an NSA spy tried to incite change from the inside. He called himself the curmudgeon of signals intelligence. Okay, so there's actually some interesting articles, and I'm not going to cover this one, just showing you what this site provides. Here's another one. 328 NSA documents reveal vast network of Iranian agents, details of a key intelligence coup, and a fervor for voice matching technology. And then I found this one interesting too. Actually, before I take you here, let me take you back here. You'll see it in additional documents released. One fish, two fish, my fish, your fish. Well, we all know that fishing is fun. It takes you to this link right here. Again, off The Intercept. And I'm not going to read all this for you. This is from back in June of 2012. But basically what this is talking about right here is that you had these Chinese fishing vessels. And they were fishing in illegal waters. And they were using this technology to basically send a ping. Think like a VPN. They were sending a ping that was basically sending a signal somewhere else, so that the people who were trying to track these illegal fishers were getting misdirected. And I think that they were kind of trying to imply that this technology has been used ever since. And it would not surprise me if the black hats were using similar kinds of technology. Well, all that now has been shut down, or at least, as Q has said, we saw yesterday all these satellites going offline. And then, of course, finishing off with GCHQ. So it looks to me like, although this is outwardly a bunk site, it does look like there's good information coming off that, just as long as you understand that it's not an official site. And Q seems to confirm this in the next post, 2027, 45 minutes after the hour of 10, responding to an Anon who basically says that it's a bunk site, or actually is talking about, about this article right here off of Forbes. The definitive NSA parody site is actually informative, and she goes on to kind of explain why. And Q confirms it and says information comes in many forms. Q. So for those of you who were kind of freaking out, there were a lot of people asking me what's going on with this fake website and this and that. I suggest you take a look at it. There's some really, really interesting stuff. And of course, Q mentions Utah, which is John Huber's territory. And I think one of the big points here is that Huber being a Utah guy, and of course the Utah data center being very nearby, a lot of lawyers nearby, and I believe Facebook has also been trying to put a data center out there in Utah. So I think overall Q is just giving us a link here to look at, check out some stuff. And although it's not an official site, I couldn't imagine you being able to put that stuff on the NSA's official site. So maybe it's just a way of letting the public know what's actually going on. After all, information comes in many forms. Let's move on to the next post. Post 2028, 25 minutes after the hour of 11 Eastern Standard Time. Q takes us to this entitled WAPO 4 a.m. And that's talking about the 4 a.m. talking points that all these media outlets get, or used to get probably up until yesterday. We have known in brackets. And Q takes us back to yesterday's post, 1996, where WAPO was doing these faulty polls. And then we get this new link here, and Q says, think polls posted yesterday, WAPO. And WAPO's in brackets, so I imagine WAPO is on their way out the door. What are the odds of that? I'd say spot on. Notice any similarities? And then we get a slew of more samples. Q says, do you believe in coincidences? So let's talk about this a little bit. First of all, the polls that were posted yesterday, the WAPO polls that were posted, we're talking about Trump's popularity on the decline, right? And we all know that that's not true. It's not even close to true. But the WAPO is desperately pushing that narrative because they want people to think that they want people to be apathetic about voting for Trump. They don't want to think that they're going to jump onto a losing team. So they're trying to project him as a loser. It's the same thing they did during the election. And the other poll was regarding QAnon. Same thing. The more popular that QAnon gets, the more they're going to try and rail against it and say it's not popular. We already understand that kind of projection, right? And now we get these new links, and this is important to understand. Washington Post. 60% disapprove of Trump, while clear majorities back Mueller and Sessions. Remember that. They back Mueller and Sessions. From NBC, poll, disapproval of Trump hits new high. Roll call. Poll shows half of Americans support impeachment against Trump. So they're kind of trying to beat that apathetic drum, aren't they? And this one's particularly important. Off of RealClearPolitics.com, leave Jeff Sessions alone. Trump is itching to get rid of the Attorney General. That must not be allowed to happen. Okay, so I'm going to do my best to explain this the best that I know how. I still get a lot of people saying, Patrick, I don't trust Sessions. This guy's an idiot. He should have done something a long time ago. Why doesn't he do something? I'm tired of it. I'm really having a hard time understanding or struggling to trust this plan. Fair enough. However, I just want to state these very, very important facts because I've stated it a million times and I'm sticking to it. Number one, Jeff Sessions did the right thing recusing himself. Remember, he was a Trump supporter. Had he not recused himself, they would have ridden him all the way through this and nothing ever would have gotten done. Well, the fact of the matter is that Sessions didn't recuse himself from doing anything. He recused himself from doing anything regarding the Trump administration and Russian collusion, right? This was the Trump campaign. That's all he recused himself from. Meanwhile, he can do what he needs to do with Horowitz and Huber. And remember, he's still in regular contact with the president. So the whole idea was to pump Sessions up as this bumbling idiot. And now a lot of people are buying it. And I said yesterday, there's going to be another media blitz and people are going to start buying into the hype. And sure enough, I checked my Twitter and people are already buying the hype. Don't believe the hype. The whole idea was to play and portray Jeff Sessions as this buffoon so that the right would clown him. And we're starting to see that now in the conservative media, including Fox, right? Sessions needs to call a second special counsel. He needs to do this. He needs to do this. All it's doing is calling out those people, not Sessions. And let me explain. Now, while clear majorities back Mueller, who else did they back? They back Rosenstein, right? He was their guy. Mueller's their guy. And this is their project. This whole investigation is Mueller and Rosenstein because Sessions recused, right? They're the boss. They're the ones driving. And when the wheels come off the bus, it will be shown that this all fell apart on their terms. There's no way the opposition that they can claim that this was some sort of political warfare, right? No, this was your project and it fell apart and look what happened. Everything traced right back to you. And that's what we're watching. We're watching this with Bruce Orr and this whole FISA with Carter Page that we'll talk about in a little bit. It's all falling apart and Trump did nothing. It's beautiful. Same thing is going on with Sessions. If everybody had originally gotten behind Sessions, they would have been following everything that he was doing. It would have led us straight to Huber and Horowitz, and then they would have tried to derail all that. Instead, those guys have been able to work outside of D.C. the way that they need to do and interview all these people and gather all this evidence and collect and basically impanel their grand juries. And we're seeing that now. And we remember, we still have Mike Cortan, we still have Bill Priestap to interview, and then we'll be ready to drop a hammer. And what happens when the deep state, who's been basically saying now, leave Jeff Sessions alone, what happens when that all flips? Look, Trump is itching to get rid of the Attorney General. Yeah, outwardly, we're seeing Trump go off on Jeff Sessions on Twitter, saying, why isn't he doing his job? I'm going to be forced to step in. I'm going to have to do this and that. It's all theater. And of course, we know that whatever Trump says, the deep state and the left and the media, they're all going to go to the opposite. Precisely the plan. So now they're supporting Jeff Sessions. Well, what happens when those interviews are finished and IG Horowitz and Huber are ready to lay down the law and drop the hammer and bring the pain? Now, not only the media, right and left, as well as basically the political left, they're all going to get caught with their pants down because now they were supporting Jeff Sessions. What happens when he hands them an indictment? They won't be able to say, well, I didn't trust him all along. No, he was their guy, and this proves it. So I hope that clears it up a little bit. I'm not explaining that perfectly, but this whole point was, picture Jeff Sessions as he's a Columbo, right? Everyone was welcome to clown him. And at the end of the day, I still believe that Jeff Sessions is going to get the last laugh, and that's why Q keeps saying trust Sessions. But if they didn't trust Sessions, they would have been trying to derail him at every point. We wouldn't have been able to get Horowitz and Huber. They wouldn't have been able to do anything. You see what I'm saying? So this is playing out absolutely beautiful, and Q kind of seems to confirm this. Let's move on to next post here, 2029, 42 minutes after the hour of 11. Q says, think WAPO. QAnon yesterday poll, POTUS today poll. We talked about those polls, right? Notice any similarities? Yeah, they're trying to tell you what's popular. Fake news readers asleep, not attentive or alert, inactive, told to support Sessions. Yeah, we're seeing this. We're starting to see that everybody's getting tired of Sessions, right? And we're seeing this even on Fox and a lot of conservative media. They're all calling for this second special counsel. It's the worst thing we could do. We would completely go right through midterms. We'd lose out. This has all been thought of. This whole, all of a sudden, everybody jumping on the Sessions bus was perfect. Because if you support Rosenstein and you support Mueller and you support Sessions and it all falls apart and you get handed the bill, you've got nothing to say. You've got nothing to argue against other than the fact that this was my fault. Every battle is won before it's ever fought. It's genius. So if you are not trusting Sessions at this point, I would simply argue you're a little behind. Are you awake? Q. Post 2030. The plot thickens. You liking this Q stuff, John?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I like that too. 43 minutes after the hour of 11 Eastern Standard Time. Q confirms here to an Anon who posts this. 2 more prosecutors leave Mueller SC, that's special counsel. 1, a cybercrime expert. Spokesperson says not due to political bias or wrongdoing. And then we see it again for some reason. Maybe it's because there's 2 more. Anyway, the link takes you to CNBC. 2 prosecutors leave Mueller's team, including an expert in cybercrimes. Interesting indeed. 2 prosecutors, including a top computer crimes investigator, have departed special counsel Robert Mueller's team investigating links between Trump associates and Russia, leaving Mueller with 15 attorneys on staff. Well, Huber and Horowitz got 470. The departures did not have to do with any allegations of wrongdoing or political bias, said a spokesman for the special counsel. It was notable when one of the prosecutors, Ryan Dickey, joined Mueller's team in November 2017 because he was the first prosecutor on the team known to specialize in cyber crimes. All right, well, I have a feeling that this is going to be one of those stories that's going to get swept under the rug real quietly. Interesting stuff. 2 prosecutors leaving. Doesn't say they necessarily quit. Let's walk through this a little bit. Now, we already know one of them, an expert in computer crimes, have departed special counsel's team. And it's these guys right here, Ryan Dickey and Brian Richardson, appear to have left the team this summer, according to a report by CNN, which first broke the news of the departures. Mueller's team now has 15 attorneys. The exits did not have to do with any allegations of wrongdoing or political bias, special counsel spokesman Peter Carr said. The president has regularly berated the special counsel's team of prosecutors, accusing them of being politically biased and conducting an illegal witch hunt. Let me stop right there. Remember, this is MSNBC. And whatever they say the president says, what do they say? Okay, let's read that again. The president has regularly berated the special counsel's team of prosecutors, accusing them of being politically biased and conducting an illegal witch hunt. In particular, Trump and his allies have gone after Peter Strzok, a former top investigator of the probe, who was removed from the team after Mueller was made aware of anti-Trump texts. We already know about that, okay? So these guys took off in the second year of this probe. And once again, they stress it shows no evidence of the sort of impropriety alleged in the Strzok case. These guys are just taking off. This guy, Dickey, is going to continue to work for the Justice Department. And Richardson took a position as a research fellow at Columbia. So they're just quietly disappearing out of the picture. It was notable when Dickey joined Mueller's team in November because he was the first prosecutor on the team known to specialize in cyber crimes. Well, we haven't been spending a whole lot of time on cyber crimes, have we? Jeez. After joining the team, Dickey worked on the 2 computer crime cases Mueller has brought in so far in his probe of Russian election interference. In February, the special counsel obtained an indictment against 13 Russian nationals. You guys remember that. Rosenstein was bragging about that, and it kind of went right back out of the circulation again. Dickey has not formally removed himself from those cases. How about that? So he's just disappearing, laying low, but hasn't formally removed himself. The Washington Post reported in June that Mueller was preparing to hand off some of his prosecutions to the Justice Department. Transferring cases to career prosecutors outside Mueller's office could make it more difficult for the president to end the inquiries by ordering Mueller to be fired. Richardson formerly worked as a clerk for the Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer. He worked on Mueller's prosecution of Dutch lawyer Alex van der Zwaan, who pleaded guilty in February to lying to investigators. All right, so these guys are disappearing all of a sudden. Sounds like things are wrapping up. And it sounds like these guys need to lay low for whatever reason it might be. Could it be that they've already handed some stuff off to Huber, or that they need to hand some stuff off to Huber? And remember, let me rememberize you, this guy is their guy. This guy is their guy. All right, let's move on. Post 2031, 6 minutes after the hour of 12 Eastern Standard Time, we get this graphic right here entitled Media One. MSNBC, endorsements by daily newspapers. And as you can see, Clinton, she's very popular. And Trump, not so much, still looking for friends. I'm not a daily newspaper, but you could put IPOT there if you want. IPOT. That's me. Do you believe actual polls were conducted? No. I don't think we ever really did. Pre-election polls. HRC favored 90 to 98%. Yeah, you remember this, right? From the graphic yesterday. And of course, you remember it from the election process. All the media stations were eating crow and they realized that Trump actually won. They were only giving him a 2 to 3% chance.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Yeah, there was a pretty good chance, wasn't there? Reconcile against results. Why is there emphasis put on polls? Because polls are basically popularity contests. And let's face it, amongst people who get the majority of their news from these places, Clinton always was winning the popularity contest. But we knew different. Define human nature. Well, thankfully, you're going to do it for us, Q. The general psychological characteristics, feelings, and behavioral traits of humankind, regarded as shared by all humans. Yeah, a lot of people on the left still think that all their views are the popular views. They think that everybody's with them, and you must be ridiculous if you don't see it the way that they see it, right? That's the way they present it. Now we go to these points here. Point 1. Fake news logic. Sounds good to me. If people believe the odds are hopeless, their candidate will win, do they still make the effort to vote? No, of course not. It's a lost cause. I was talking about that in an earlier post there regarding that's why they're pushing all this unpopular stuff, right? Don't pay attention to QAnon. It's not popular. Don't pay attention to Trump. He's not popular. That's what they've stooped to, a popularity contest. Point 2. If people believe the odds are overwhelming their candidate will win, do they still make the effort to vote? That's a good question. I would assume no, right? It's kind of like the thought about a cyclist that's going downhill. The winner keeps pedaling, right? And the others just coast because they're going downhill. So they assume they don't have to make the effort to vote. Does one cancel two? Yeah, I suppose either that or two cancels one. Point 3. Fake news logic. If people believe the majority of people feel a certain way about something, do they go with the majority to feel accepted? If the majority of people believe something does that imply it must be right, yeah, if people think that they're part of the majority, they think they're part of the moral majority. And that's what's going on here. And they assume that everybody outside of that, or at least in pertaining to what we're talking about right now, is racist, or they're misogynist, or they're, they don't care about children being separated at the border. It's easy to throw these sort of general terms at somebody. They're no longer humanizing us. Does this give rise to the we are majority mindset? Precisely what I just said. Define echo chamber. It's exactly what they're doing. They're all barking in this ever shrinking echo chamber, thinking that they're still the moral majority. A metaphorical description of a situation in which beliefs are amplified or reinforced by communication and repetition, inside a closed system. Prior to new platforms, networks, connecting people, did the old guard have full control? Yeah, they really did. And in a lot of ways, they still are really kind of grasping at it, right? Now, in regards to new platforms, I'm not sure how new we're talking about. I mean, you could talk about this right here, QAnon.pub or whatever site that you're using. That's a new platform, isn't it? And although 8chan's been around for a while, InfoWars, things like that, alternative media types, they've been around for a while. But if you think about the longer scope of things, they're relatively new, right? And those things are connecting people, and we're getting more and more of these new networks connecting us, and we're able to kind of do whatever we want. We don't need to be restricted by them. Well, the old guard had full control. Did the old guard learn from this mistake, 2016 election, and now tasking all new platforms, networks to censor? Well, they're basically not learning. They're never going to learn because their agenda doesn't allow for that. And so they're going to take on all these new platforms by censoring them themselves. Now, if we're talking about Twitter, Facebook, and things like that, again, these are relatively new social media platforms. This platform right here, YouTube, a relatively new platform. So what do they get? They get pressured. They get pressured because a lot of this stuff comes from their funding. We'll take your funding away if you don't censor this. This is our message, and this is how it's gone on. And when you're awake, you can see that real clearly. And that's why it shouldn't be hard to figure out that when we get this next media barrage, and it's still going to come harder, folks. It'll come probably all week. We'll be able to understand the root of that, the more that they panic. And I'm talking about Fox News as well, too. It really is. It's true. It's an echo chamber, and that's all that it is, and it's all crumbling. Let's move on. 2032, 35 minutes after the hour of 12. Q says, like clockwork. Q. Well, what's like clockwork, Q? Well, let's take you to the next post, 2033. 36 minutes after the hour of 12. Adding on to that, we get this tweet from Victoria Tensing. Shame on the Justice Department AG appointed U.S. Attorney Huber for 9 months ago to look into Uranium One and FISA false application. Huber has not interviewed ORS. Huber has not interviewed my client, Doug Campbell, the FBI undercover informant for Uranium One. Hashtag MAGA. Well, look, this is more bang the drum, right? This is all about banging the war drum. Now, I don't want to say anything particular about this for Victoria Tensing, but I just want to mention in general. Okay, this was retweeted from Sarah Carter. There's a lot of figures in the media right now, and some of them are MAGA, some of them not so much. And within that MAGA community, you've got some guys that are speaking out against Q. Within the alternative media community, you've got some people speaking out against Q. Now, some of them are generally concerned about Q for different reasons. Some of them are threatened by Q because Q is giving them news that they're not providing. Some of them are truly against Q because they might be implicated in something. But then again, some of them are actors. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, actors are acting. So much of this is theater. And if you don't feel patient about that, just remember, this is all the art of war. And the art of war is grand theater. Grand theater, right? So I'm not sure about this Tensing person, but it lends to the point. Here's more Jeff Sessions coming from this Victoria Tensing saying, oh, this Huber's been going on for 9 months and hasn't looked into any of this stuff. Oh, let me bang the butthurt war drum. And Q takes us back to this. Emotions cloud judgment. Why is Huber being discussed now? Because he can't just show up and all of a sudden drop a whole bunch of indictments without anybody knowing who he is. You got to give the previews. You got to introduce who he is. Those of you who write screenplays or write books, you got to introduce the character first. What if the Texas congressman was not supposed to drop that name? And we were talking about this. It was a TV interview on Fox, and he was talking about Huber. Why is Huber being discussed now? Because like I just said, it's ready. It's time. It's time for people to understand who he is. Not necessarily everything about what he does, but who he is. Why is Huber all of a sudden being grouped into the anti-Sessions, remove, fire, nothing being done? Because that's exactly what they want you to think, right? They want you to think that nothing is being done. They want you to think that these guys are trash because those people are the ones that don't want to see what they've got in store. Discussed by right or left? Right. Huber did not directly interview, and that would have been like Bruce or da-da-da-da. And you see these two narratives, and I still think that this is talking about the two different conservative, or you could say MAGA narratives. Huber did not. Sessions did not. When will Sessions? You understand, right? The people that are trusting the plan aren't tripping on this because we saw this coming. But in the outward narrative, you've got these people in the news now just figuring out about Huber. We've been talking about Huber for months. and that's why we can trust the plan. Who investigates? Let me take you back. Who does Huber work with specifically? Horowitz. Who investigates? Well, that's Horowitz. Who prosecutes? Huber. Team of 470? Yeah. Now, while we're on that, I want to add too that in addition to all the lawyers that they have, there is also this too. The 470th Military Intelligence Brigade, a unit of the United States Army and subordinate to the U.S. Army Intelligence and Security Command. There you go. So there's another 470 for you. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on that, but you see what's going on. We've got it all. This is all theater playing out. Will Bruce Orr transcripts be released? I could assume probably so. If Q's offering it up, that's probably a precursor. Huber plus IG plus 470. Inside or outside of the DC swamp. Precisely. While we're hating on Sessions, Huber's had time to do all of this. Well, Huber's almost done. And so now it's time to start introducing him into the narrative. And some people are praising him and other people not so much, right? And then it goes on to talk. I'm not going to really go into the rest of this, but Q says, like clockwork. Like I said, if you understand this plan, this shouldn't come as any surprise. Let's move on. Post 2034, 10 minutes after the hour of 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We get this Twitter link here. Q says both chambers, House/Senate, in session on Tuesday. Q. And it takes you to the Twitter handle of Randy Quaid here. And I am going to play this video. I am going to warn you, it's a short video, but there's a lot of strobe action. So if you get headaches easy, just letting you know now. Let's check it out.
CNN is working frantically to find their source. Look hard, because it doesn't exist. Whatever was left of CNN's credibility is now gone.
Well, there is famed comedic actor Randy Quaid, who's looking more and more every day like a roadie for Skinner, kicking down some truth on his Twitter handle. I'm not really sure what he was going for there. Maybe mysterious wizard? I'm not sure. It was coming across more like creepy sales guy from Spencer's Gifts at the mall. But either way, I love me some Randy. Always will. And he's right. CNN's got no sauce, and they're looking for sauce right now. Why? Because both chambers of the House and Senate are in session on Tuesday. That'll be the 4th, right? And that's going to be this right here. Kavanaugh confirmation. And I'm not going to go into this article. We all know what's up. That's going to require both the House and the Senate to get up in there. And of course, there's a lot of people that want to make sure that Kavanaugh doesn't get that seat. And if you'll remember, let's think all the way back to the election. Had Hillary won, this seat very likely could have belonged to Aunt Loretta Lynch or somebody else. And then when Ginsburg stepped down, that could have gone to Loretta Lynch. But either way, we're definitely in a better position. So you know they're looking for sauce. They're looking for something to dig up on this guy. It's going to be all about gun control. It's going to be all about Roe versus Wade. It's going to be all about just about everything else other than issues that are actually facing our communities these days, because they want to make sure that this seat doesn't happen. And it likely is going to happen, especially now that No Name is out of the picture. So we shall see what happens, but I have a feeling it's going to be a big, big day. Let's move on. Post 2035, 2 minutes after the hour of 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we get this Fox News link right here. California bullet train project on track to blow through billions of more dollars. California's biggest boondoggle just broke the bank. Ooh, I like that word, boondoggle. Not only is the massive high-speed rail project 11 years behind schedule and billions in the red, managers are now saying they will need to ramp up spending to hit a 2033 deadline. California's money pit cost taxpayers $3.1 million a day last year, but that's small potatoes compared to what they'll have to shell out over the next 4 if they want to meet their deadline and budget, estimated most recently at $100 billion in a report last month by the New York Times. Wow. All right, so this bullet train thing, I have to tell you, I've seen it in a few different countries now. It happens. This is a big time tax bleed. And sadly, it's a good idea if it were done right. And of course, it's never done right because it's big government. And a great example of big, poor, mismanaged government is California. It's a boondoggle. So they build this project, and halfway through, you can't just undo it. You got to commit to it, which is why they can bleed you for more money. That's exactly what they're trying to do here. So even though the idea is super, super cool, if it were done right, it never is. I've seen this sadly in quite a few places. And I can tell you this, it doesn't cost $100 billion. Try, probably less than half of that. That's just my guess, but I've seen other countries do it for less than half of that. So this is a mess, right? More California mismanagement. Does this mean more fires? What are you talking about, Q? Well, Q posted back in July about those fires in California. And what were they doing? They were requesting federal aid, billions of dollars in federal aid. Look, the deep state is broke, and they're not going to get any money going through California. Especially, they're not going to get a ton of state aid. Why? Because they're battling. They're all the sanctuary cities and this and that. Jerry Brown isn't going to get money the right way, so he's got to create an emergency, right? And that's what's been going on. Now, listen, I lived in Southern California for many, many years. I realized that many fires in Southern California start organically. But Q was flat out saying, back just a month or so ago, that was not the case. They were setting these on purpose to try and get the billions because all their funding is gone, right? And then Q flat out says, Paul and Nancy Pelosi Charitable Foundation. Well, that's this right here. And if you're new to Q, I'm going to sum it up as succinctly as I can. These charitable foundations are simply money funneling projects to benefit nobody but Paul and Nancy Pelosi. Incidentally, this logo has a little pedophile heart in the middle of it, but then it's a Q on the outside. So it's like Q is rounding up the pedophiles. I don't know. I'm just talking out my bum now, but you get the idea. These charitable foundations are where the money's going, and Q's not necessarily mincing words when it comes to that. Let's move on. Post 2036, 26 minutes after the hour of 2 p.m. What about the budget? Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to cover these links real quick first, and we'll put the story together. The first one is off of Fox. It can be done. Newsom touts plan to give universal health care to illegal immigrants in California. That sounds like a brilliant idea. Tommy Lahren says this should infuriate Californians. Yeah, wait until they hear about the boondoggle of a bullet train, Tommy. California gubernatorial candidate Gavin Newsom touted his plan to grant universal health care to illegal immigrants in a recent podcast interview. Newsom said that he was very proud that as mayor of San Francisco from 2004 to 2011, he implemented such a policy and that it was done in a cost-effective way. All right, look, I'm not going to spend much time on this. Look at this guy right here. He looks like the villain in the movie, doesn't he? Ladies and gentlemen, this is Gary Oldman right here playing the bad guy, saying, no, it's all good. I handled it in San Francisco, and I also was in charge of putting out Poop Patrol and the needle cleaning crew. It's working out great in San Francisco, isn't it, Gary Oldman? I mean, Gavin Newsom. All right. So, great. Universal health care to illegals. Now, let's go to the next one here real quick. California one step closer to expanding Medicaid for illegal immigrants. Great. Great. Sounds brilliant. Here's another link. California DMV allows illegals to vote. Oh, I see where this is going now. So, come on over to the U.S. We're expanding Medicaid. You can get free health care. Just do us a favor. Vote Democrat. You see what's up, right? We'll give you everything you need. Just vote Democrat. Well, why would California elected officials knowingly collapse the budget? Who elects California officials? Well, the people do, right? And they need votes. So they got to give them to illegals because anybody with half a brain won't be voting for them. Money to be made, you bet there is. And this is where Big Pharma comes in. Let me take you to the next link. How American citizens finance $18.5 billion in healthcare for unauthorized immigrants. Okay, well, nothing new from Forbes. And if you don't mind, we still got a lot of Q. I don't want to cover this, but you get what's going on. They bring these illegals in here. They promise them free health care because it's the health care companies, the Big Pharma, donates how much to California, New York elected officials? Tons. And what ends up happening is we foot the bill, right? So everything domestically goes way, way up. Meanwhile, Big Pharma is selling it for cheap all over the world, getting people hooked on their drugs and encouraging them to come on over here and vote Democrat. And you'll get free health care. Crashes the economy. That's what socialism is, right? It works for everyone. Everyone can equally suck because we're inclusive. Compare versus other states, I'm sure it's no comparison. Not even close. California and New York. Why would that be? Because they're vital areas of control. Think ports. Now, if you haven't seen some of my past videos, I would like to encourage you to watch my Connecting the Crisis video. It particularly deals with Haiti. But this is essentially what's going on. They get legal protection. Okay, they get their guys in, like Gary Oldman here. And they basically look the other way. And they encourage the police force to look the other way. Meanwhile, they use these ports and their deals within these ports to traffic everything. And I'm talking about children too. Medical equipment, big pharma, drugs, people, whatever. They go through these ports, legal protection. They allow it to pass through these ports. And that's what's been crashing California. And this goes on all over the world. And that's why when President Trump, basically back in December, issued that executive order, a lot of that money got cut off. And so now they're making this last ditch effort because they know they can't win the proper way. This is the only way to do it, is to pump illegals in, and they're doing it all over the world. This isn't just with the United States, but of course we're seeing a classic example of it here, and those are our port cities. And that's the legal protection. How's that make you feel there, John? Yeah, that's how I feel. I feel like, grrr. Let's move on. Now, post 2037, 31 minutes after the hour of 2 p.m. Q adds on here with a little button. Your vote counts. We will do our job to protect the vote. Will you do yours? Fight, fight, fight. Fantastic. And President Trump just said that the other day, didn't he? Fight, fight, fight. Well, your vote does count, ladies and gentlemen. All of this grand theater is fantastic, but it doesn't matter if we don't get to watch the third part of the trilogy, right? And in order to get there, we got to make sure we get past part one, which means that's our vote. That's what we can do. And for those of you who feel a little bit helpless through all this, at least know that. Because there's places around the world where you can't do that. So exercise your right, have fun with it, enjoy it. We're winning, but we got to pedal downhill because we're winners. We're not chumps. Let's move on. Post 2038, 55 minutes after the hour of 2 p.m., we get Old Glory here. Where we go one, we go all. We the people, from sea to shining sea. Let freedom ring, patriots. It is your time. If America falls, the world falls. United we stand. God bless you all. Q+. So Q+ comes on, and Q+ is a lot like Q, except plus. And we appreciate Q+ taking the time to get online, say hello. And I think they're trying to drive the point home that we're getting closer and closer to midterms. And as we get closer and things get more intense, we have to remember that we've got one thing to do, and that's show up and get one of these buttons, right? One of these I voted stickers. We got to show up and make sure we do our job. We only get so many opportunities in our life to practice this sort of thing. And people all over the world die for that right. And that's why this symbol here means something. Not just to our country, but to the rest of the world, because it doesn't just symbolize a country, it symbolizes an idea. And it's an attainable idea. And people around the world are grasping at that idea right now. Where we go one, we go all. Let's move on. Post 2039, 6 minutes after the hour of 3 p.m., we get this from an Anon. Breaking: in response to JW's FOIA lawsuit, DOJ admitted that the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court held no hearings on the FISA spy applications targeting Carter Page, former Trump campaign advisor who is the subject of 4 FISA warrants. And the Anon says, where are the judges? They were comped too. If you bake it, he will crumb. I like that. Q gives us this link to Judicial Watch and says, big, big, big. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is big. This is Judicial Watch, and we all know that Judicial Watch is Tom fitting to get us some documents. And we've been talking about this for a while. Judicial Watch today announced that in response to a Judicial Watch Freedom of Information Act lawsuit, the Justice Department, DOJ, admitted in a court filing last night that the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court held no hearings on the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act spy warrant applications targeting Carter Page, a former Trump campaign part-time advisor who was the subject of 4 controversial FISA warrants. All right, and it goes on to talk about it a little bit more, but I'll just sum it up here. There is no FISA without getting through a FISA court. You cannot obtain a FISA court warrant without a FISA court hearing. You need to start off with a threat assessment, then you need to go up through all these lawyers throughout, whether it's the FBI, DOJ, before you even get to the FISA court, and then they'll decide. And even then, you got to renew it. So this thing was a mess to begin with. And it's very simple. It says it in the title. Discloses no FISA court hearing. Okay, then you have no FISA application. It's invalid. And we were told that with these 4 FISA warrants that there were 4 separate judges that signed off it. But there would only be 3 qualifying judges from what I can tell. One of them was Rudolph Contreras, who was the one who accepted the Mike Flynn plea deal and then recused himself. He was also a friend of Peter Strzok. The whole thing's a farce. The whole thing's a mess. Pack it up, pack it in, let me begin and get it done. It's finished. And Tom Fitton, to get us some documents, just hooked it up with some proof. All of this comes down. All of it. Legally. This is essentially where it all begins. There was no threat assessment. There was no proper signing off through the chain of command. There was no FISA court. No FISA court, no FISA warrant. Simple as that. And that's a big, big deal. And I'm sure this man thinks it's a big, big deal too. And Q seems to agree that it's big, big, big. What do you think, John? John, you like that?
Yeah, I like that.
I like that too. Show me your happy face. Yeah. Let's move on. And the most recent post here, 2040, 12 minutes after the hour of 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Q posts this picture entitled D5, which I can't help but think at this point is referring to an avalanche. And we had these 2 Donald Trump tweets, which a lot of people think D5 means Donald Trump. But I think we're talking about an avalanche. We're getting an avalanche of stuff here. And Q goes on to post this Judicial Watch link. Big, 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 big. Well, that's 5 bigs. In the previous post, you had 3. So that's more bigly. Let me read these off of Twitter because those are kind of blurry. I'm going to read the bottom one first because it's the one that comes first. Or told the FBI, and this is in quotes, the fake dossier wasn't true. It was a lie, and the FBI was determined to use it anyway to damage Trump and to perpetrate a fraud on the court to spy on the Trump campaign. Well, that is pretty big, right? Because Orr was the one who was in direct contact with Christopher Steele regarding the fake dossier. So there we have another origin story today falling apart. Well, that is big, and it is a fraud on the court. The Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court is in charge of the FISA court. He should direct the presiding judge, Rosemary Collyer, to hold a hearing. Haul all of these people from the DOJ and FBI in there, and if she finds there were crimes committed, and there were, there should be a criminal referral by her. And then we have an ellipses here referring to @Greg Jarrett. And it doesn't continue. But this is obviously very, very massive. And as we know, most of President Trump's tweets end up being foreshadowing. So it looks like the presiding judge, Rosemary Collyer, is going to have to hold a hearing because now we've seen this. And now we've got testimony. And now Tom Fitton's got some proof. So the whole thing is falling apart. And now it's just got to play out. And it looks like it's time for the DOJ and FBI to play some defense. They're going to be going in front of a court. And if we find out there were some crimes committed, and there should be a criminal referral by her. You let me know what you think he was saying. Well, that is a very, very big deal, ladies and gentlemen. A massive deal. As a matter of fact, Q puts that at 5 bigs. That's very bigly. All right. That's a lot of winning right there. And today I've chosen to do something a little bit differently. I wanted to make sure that I shared you all these winning stories so that you'd feel all pumped up so that we could celebrate, because we've got stuff to celebrate. Thank you to all of you who helped me get to 35,000 subscribers. I've got yourself a nice lemon cake because I got lemon cake requested. And I know this to be a lemon cake because there's a lemon on it. And so that was kind of what tipped me off. No, but the computer did say that this was a lemon curd cake. And I concurred. So thanks for all that you do. I know some of you guys are getting into a long weekend. Have yourself a piece of cake. Enjoy all the wins that you just experienced. Make sure that if votes are happening in your area, that you go out and vote. If you're heading out for a long weekend, please be safe. Take care of each other. Those are all your Q posts. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. And if you're new to my videos, please know that YouTube will unsubscribe you and unlike you and uncheck you and unnotify you because they don't like the groovy kind of love that we have between us. But that's okay. There's a lot of love for you here.
You love me?
I do love you, and everybody else loves you too. You love everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. All right, kids. Now, want to let you know that all of my links are down below. Gab, BitChute, Real.Video, my Patreon link, my email, all that good stuff is down below. You can find me at Twitter at IPOT1776. That's at IPOT1776. That's all I got for you today. Enjoy the winning. Be safe this weekend, and I will see you the next time Q posts. And until next time, just play it cool, boy. Real cool.